Welcome, everybody. Today is the eQMS and MedTech with Qualio. And just to give a little bit of history, not everybody who's here today, of course, has been to previous ones. My goal with these is to help us all navigate the eQMS solutions out there. Initially, I was going to just focus on educating my team, and then I realized a lot of us startups, a lot of the clients we work with have a lot of questions and really want a safe environment to poke at those questions with the eQMS vendors. And I'm really excited to do this one with Qualio. I look forward to doing more with this solution. And I'll introduce them in a moment, remind everybody, we are CQG. Our goal is to bring the regulated environment into a more sustainable, approachable solution. We are an outsourced quality department. We've helped over 200 companies worldwide in the last 13 years that we've been doing this. And we really focus on bringing these solutions to you in a way that's, again, sustainable, manageable, take the fear out, help you and your business move forward. On that note, I'm going to hand it over to Qualio. Nicolo.
Yeah, thank you. And Canon Quality Group, Nicole, thank you so much for having us join. We're super excited to educate you all a little bit about our background, but mainly just to give you guys insight into how the product works and how we think about quality management as well from a product perspective. That said, I'll quickly introduce myself. I'm Nicolo. I lead the partnerships here at Qualio. I'll pass it over to Sarah to let her do an introduction, and then we'll get to it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Jardine. I'm a solutions consultant here at Qualio, and I've worked with eQMSs for over a decade, so I have some experience with quite a few of them, but Qualio is my home, and I've really enjoyed working here. Thank you for having us.
Yes, thanks. So, where I want to start today is really taking a step back and beginning with Qualio's mission, which is to enable teams to launch and scale life-saving products. So, I think we've all probably heard this quote at one point or another. It's a high tide rises all ships. And that's really how we think about the software that we're building. By building easy-to-use software, it's going to enable more entrepreneurs enter the market and overall grow the market. So a little bit about the challenges that we've noticed in the industry and sort of how we're doing to address it is, first off, we're seeing a new breed of companies emerge. We're seeing platform companies be developed that are lowering the barriers to entry to the industry. So now it's becoming easier than ever for these startups to make and start companies. And that is creating companies that have totally different needs than the incumbents did before. So the slide cut off a little bit. First off is it used to take a lot of time to implement a software with existing tools. So part of our strategy is to build easy to use modern technology that makes it super easy to implement so companies can begin their regulatory journey sooner rather than later. The second thing is around usability. So these incumbent systems, hard to use. They weren't built for a tech-first audience, and newer generations of people, they want to use modern technology that's super easy to use. They can go in the system and within a couple minutes figure out how to use it. So that's why we've built Qualio to be super easy to use and intuitive. The third thing is integration. So in the past, you could use one tool and it would serve a lot of needs, but with these newer breed of companies, they're using a lot of different tools to manage their QMS or their company in general. And it's super important that a modern QMS systems that connect with these different fragmented tools. And so those are really the core things we see these companies needing, and that's really sort of how we're thinking about the product. I think we have a quick question in between the next slide. So
yeah, we're gonna drop a poll question. You guys
right,
will have it. It'll show up on the right side, and this will help us know the best demo for you to understand where you guys are at. So the first one is, what's your priority with an eQMS solution? It helps us understand what you want to learn today, what it would be great for Qualio to share with you. And we have some other questions I'll keep interrupting Nicolo with, and hopefully not Sarah too much, but we'll see. Okay, go for it. We got answers coming in. Regulatory submission in one system for a single source of truth, which is kind of what you were speaking about in that last part when we get a lot of them.
Yeah. You want me to give it a couple moments, or should I keep?
You can keep going, and I'll. I think it's information that'll help Sarah as she rolls into her next.
Yeah,
demo.
absolutely. And if you can't add anything in the chat, we are more than happy to be flexible to to pivot to the demo, try to address certain things, or if we don't have time, we get during the demo, or we're not able to address it during the demo, we're happy to maybe in the Q&A at the end, or even separately after the call, we're happy to schedule separate time with you all individually.
Yeah, that's a good reminder. Everyone can just be super active in the chat, and I'll interrupt these two with your questions. And then, afterwards, it's a good reminder. 15 minutes, and then we can you can always reach out. So that's great. Good.
So a couple more slides I want to talk about just quickly about Qualio is one is how we began. So Rob Fenton is our CEO. He is actually was a former consultant. And what happened, he used to work in big pharma, but he ended up moving to the Bay Area in around 2015. And in the Bay Area, he began working with these new breeds of companies, and he identified these needs. And the reason he started Qualio is he couldn't find a product on the market that really addressed him. So since then, we've been growing quite a bit, as you can see by the funding round. But also, it really speaks towards the validation of those three premises that we shared earlier. Because we've built it for that and we've had this growth, it's just validation that what we're building is aligned with what these startups need in the market. So I think there's one final question, and then we'll get into the demo. So I will share this right now. Nicole, do you want to read this?
Yeah, sorry, I got a chat from Alan saying he can't hear you, which I just wanted to check in on. I'll do that in a moment. Poll question 2: where are you in the product life cycle? In your company's product life cycle? You can answer that. Again, it helps them with the demo. I can hear you, so I'm just checking on.
Yeah.
What's happening there.
I got confirmation from a person that they can hear me.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
You can keep rolling and see if any answers come in on the phase of the product life cycle.
Okay. Well, this is the final slide I have before passing it over to Sarah. Is our system is really built to manage every aspect of the quality management system. So everything from doc control, training, to change controls, quality events, different quality events. That said, we're going to focus on a high-level demo for this meeting or for this webinar. If there's anything specific that you guys want to see, feel free again to add it in the chat. Or maybe if we don't have time to cover everything and you want to see something afterwards, we're happy to coordinate that as well. So
Can we do one question coming in just to tee you up? I'm always going to just interrupt.
Yeah, I love it.
Christian is curious, Sarah and Nicolo, if it's easy to use for a software-only device.
It absolutely is. We pride ourselves on being able to do both very well.
And Sarah, before we jump in, or as I hand it to you, do you want to answer the question, just what is a quality event, just so that's more clear too?
Oh, absolutely. Hey, Josh, nice to see you. So a quality event could be a CAPA or a complaint or a nonconformance, a deviation. And it's sometimes you'll hear it as a form as well. So hopefully that helps clarify that question. I think at this point you're ready for me to share my screen, right?
Correct.
Nicole? Okay, perfect. Okay, so I have a very large screen. We'll just, hopefully it will work just fine. We'll go with this. So, all right, so I've tried to expand it pretty large. So this is what Qualio looks like when you log in. There's a couple different levels of users. Right now you're viewing what you would call an admin or a quality user. And the important thing to see about Qualio is that we've developed it from the end user standpoint, meaning we want to make sure that your teams don't have to spend a lot of time adminning a software instead of being able to do their job. That when your end users get into Qualio, it's very user friendly, it's easy to navigate. So the very first thing that you're going to see is this screen here. This is what we call our dashboard. It's where you're going to see any documents or events or items that you have been working on, so kind of like a My Recent, or items that you need to work on, like training, or if you've had a review or a step in that event that we were just speaking about. It will show up here. And so as you kind of look along the top, you're going to see the different products that we have at this point. So back to your question, Josh, our design controls, that is where you could manage a software-only device. You can also manage your physical device as well. So there was a couple of things that came in about the one system source of truth. That was one of the big poll items. So as we navigate through, let's actually take a look at where your documents are going to live. So you would come to your library, and there's a couple different things.
Sarah, to interrupt you. Is there a way to zoom in? It looks like.
Sure, I am happy to do so. Is that better?
Yeah, I think so. Let me see if there's any. That's definitely better for me. So let's see if anybody pipes up.
Thank you for letting me know.
And it looks like you have people at concept and verification and validation stages, just to help you know.
Perfect. Thank you. So that validation and verification, Qualio offers some very unique services as well. Our validation is a much easier lift than I've seen in a lot of other companies because we're GAMP5, which makes it so that the validation lift is easier. We have a lot of ways to ease that lift that you can accept our validation. Validation and verification from design controls, I'll show you that in just a minute. If we focus in here at the documents level of it, you can also see that we have a system of tagging. So these tags over here on the right-hand side, this is where you can actually create private tags. So they're locked down for if you have auditors. You can also clear out those tags. You can search within not only the list page here, but you can also go into, and it would search the documents themselves. And the way that we handle documents in our system is we have an in-app editor to ease the use for that review cycle. And we're able to easily tag different other items within the system that you can easily either tag to another SOP or an NCMR, one of those quality events, or a design control. You can do that as well. And this is a quick look at our editor. You can see all our different doc properties on this side. We have the ability to pretty much create a new draft here. We could create exports for uncontrolled or controlled copies. And if I navigate back, go ahead.
Can I ask one question? When you with the tags, you mentioned that for auditors. So is the idea is you can go in and pre-tag a bunch of things for an audit that's coming up, and then you go in and do you give them access, or how do you work with that tag?
Multiple ways. We've seen some customers that will give their auditor a login and then only give them access to that tag, which means that's the only documents they'll see. They don't see anything you don't want them to see.
Fantastic. Okay.
So you can do it both ways. One of the other ease of use that we have here is that everything's kind of centered around your document itself. That's where your training can be assigned. And when you come over to our training dashboard, you can actually see, and just so happens today, our demo site is perfect. Everybody is signed off on training because this will never happen. But we also have, so you get to see the documents that you're training on. You can see it and list it by your groups that they're being trained on, and or by an employee. You can include former members. You can export these different trainings. You can navigate down a little bit further, and you can see, and I picked somebody who didn't have anything, but if they would have, you would have seen what this employee had to train on, what they had trained on, and you can go ahead and reassign that training.
Oh, nice. And that's key, because that's like definitely a lot of the startups. This is one of the big areas where it starts to become a challenge of managing people and time.
Absolutely. You're not having to check it off. You're not having to go play policeman. and try to find everybody. You can export these into an array of different types, so you can send it out to who you need to send it out to. The system also notifies your end users, so you're not having to ping them and say, hey, get your training done. The system will notify them.
So there's one question from Jody. Do you have training matrix capability?
We do. I don't have it in this site here today because we are still in development. That should be released next month, but it has training plans. It has the ability to download a training matrix, has some great functionality that's coming. And we release quite frequently. So you'll see a lot of these new things coming in.
Nice.
I'm going to bounce over to design controls before we hit events, because I know this was one of the bigger ones. And what you're going to see here is a list of different products that currently in our demo site that we have built out. And it's important to note at this phase, what we've built out here is actually with the help of our own consultants. So our consultants, with any startup, you always need that person who can guide you in what you're trying to find. So we work with customers who have already have all their documents in place. They don't really need a lot of that consultative look at it to say, hey, this is how we've done it in the past with other customers, or this is how I did it when I worked in the field. But we offer that. We call it our plus offering. So as we come in here to actually look at the design control, we took a page out of Jira. If any of you have used Jira, so kind of on that software note, we also integrate with Jira. But this will look a little bit familiar where you have your different phases. This is easily configurable. That you can adjust if you don't like it to say user need, it can have a different name. We go on the 3-tiered approach with that. We have open issues that we can look at. And so as you go through that product lifecycle, you're able to go from start to finish. You can create different requirements. You can have your different test cases. You can view what open issues you have or what are coming up. You can see if it's approved or in review, what needs to happen. You can see if there's untested or failing tests. You can see that from this type of dashboard. Your review cycles, and this is usually a big one. So depending on if you're software or hardware, we'll alter this a little bit. And of course, one of the other things we like to pride ourselves on is being flexible to how you use the system. But if I come down and look at one that's completed, during one of the reviews, during our phase 2 review, we actually can see the outputs. And these different design elements, so your risk matrix and your risk analysis and your trace matrix, it will actually output all of that for you. And so you can see from a high level overview what happened during that last approval phase.
Oh, nice. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm also thinking I might want to drop that third poll right now because it's going to help us see one more piece of data. So I'm going to put that out there.
That would be great.
Okay, I'll do that while you keep going.
Perfect. The other thing that's important that whenever you're developing any kind of product is understanding your risk and where you're at. So during the configuration, you can actually determine what your risk level is, if it's high, medium, or low. But this screen here is actually part of what happens with that printout. And then you can assign this risk to the different portions within that review cycle. And it looks like the poll is up. And it looks like, okay. So as you kind of go through it, one of the other great things with Qualio is that we like to grow with you. So whether you are that really beginning phase startup or you have more mature processes, we can help you with either one of those, especially when we start looking more into our integrations. I'm going to bounce over to events because I know we're getting close. So in our events portion, what you have here is you can actually see all of your events at a glance. And this is what we would call a bit of a reporting page, but what it does for you is you can see quickly what you have out there. You could actually sort it by event type. You would be able to see the date, the owners, the tags that we talked about before, and they will play over here as well. So you could add it by tag or the issue status. You're able to generate that report and it will download, and then you can send it out to who you need to. The other pretty big power of this is you can see your different tasks that you have out there. So generally speaking, with an event like a Kappa, you might have to go and review or qualify another supplier. So you'd be able to do that from here and see who needed to perform which tasks. And then last but certainly not least is the other portion of the analytics here, where you can see what product was affected by this. You can see the stats, and you can create products, you can create new root causes, and that will feed into this information as well. And I think I have just a couple more minutes if I'm correct, Nicola. So I'll keep.
Correct.
Perfect. Okay. And then let's just take a quick view over suppliers. And I apologize, Nicolo. I said Nicola.
Oh, it's.
And actually, you have plenty of time. We have until 11:45 if you want.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. I wasn't sure if it was a little bit short on time. Awesome.
Yeah, you're doing great. And I'll just put out to the group if there's particular areas you want Sarah to dig deeper into. Please don't hesitate. I'll start I'll start pushing into areas, but I want to make sure we get where you guys want to go.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. This is what the supplier overview page would be. And it's important to note that anywhere within Qualio, you can link to it. If you had to have a complaint that was over a supplier, you can link to that supplier. If you wanted to link from the document because that supplier affected, let's say, a label, and you have your own SOP out there for your supplier, you can link to it that way. A lot of interlinkings, and if we have a bit of time, I'll show you that at the very end.
Yes.
But this is what the supplier overview would look like, so you can see at a really quick glance.
And can you interact? Like, can they interact, or is that part of the supplier? Do you invite them to, or is that a separate potential?
If you choose to give them access to the system, absolutely, they could have their own license, and you could give them access to this.
Mm-hmm. And it's kind of the same as the auditor thing, where you give them limited. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have 3 different levels of licenses right now, and they would be what we call a basic. So they wouldn't have a lot of access, just to where you wanted them to go.
But it would be it's separate. I know I asked the question based on being in the supplier portal, but that's kind of a separate. They don't get their access from the supplier portal. It's like a normal, everybody gets access thing.
For the supplier itself, you would designate where you wanted them to have access. So if you had, let's say, sometimes you have those documents that suppliers, you might want them to collaborate or review with you, you could give them access to that. That tagging feature will help give and eliminate different access within the system.
Nice. And do you have to tag, or just even by giving them a certain license, it already whittles them down to certain things, or?
It will whittle them down to what they're able to do in the system. And then you kind of have to determine, are you going to give them events or design controls, which would be a no, usually speaking, unless you wanted them to reply to a SCAR. So that we leave up to the customer themselves. Okay.
And then, like, if you had competing suppliers, you would tag the parts or drawings, the particular ones you wanted them to see. Okay.
Correct. Absolutely. And that's where those tags are really helpful. I wouldn't want to, like customers I've used or that I've worked with, they definitely use that tagging to make sure that suppliers don't see each other's documents.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
So from here with the suppliers, just one or two more little things about them. You can see you have all of their different information. You can see what the risk level is. You're able to define that risk on one of the configuration pages. You can add in supporting documents, whether it be an attachment from outside the system or a link within the system. So you can do either way. You can actually also view their audits, what their audits have been, and you can see if they're overdue. So kind of a quick way to see these different suppliers.
And then is there like a boiled up dashboard for suppliers that you can kind of see all the audits that you have to do this year, for example?
Perfect question. It's actually shown on this page here, and you can download this and you can actually see the status. So you're able to see where they're at, what type of risk they are. And from there, you can actually export that view.
Great, thank you.
Perfect. So since we have a little bit more time, let's dig in just a little deeper, unless there's any other questions out there that would like more on suppliers.
Not yet,
I don't see anything.
Yeah.
Perfect. So let's go into a little bit more of the document. And what you'll see with Qualio is whether you're in a document or you're in event, how it works is that it's not just a template, but there's content to the template itself. So when you create a template in Qualio, it allows you to push that out. So if people are are creating a document, like for instance of this design development plan, you can ensure that it's including the information that you want. And because we have this in-app editor, what it also allows you is you can compare against directly within the system. You don't have to worry about downloading a file and then having to compare against and then trying to make sure you upload the right file when you're in that review cycle. You can actually come up here and see what has been what's changed. I can see that in my original, it probably was based off of the content and the template. And then I made some additional links to and within the system. So anything in red was what it was prior. Anything in green is what it was changed to for this version.
And then, because when you go, maybe we'll do a DCO or a change order. When it's before it's approved, can you go in and I'm curious if you can comment or not accept certain changes or how the interaction on that works.
It's like you're leading me down the path, and I adore it. I'm here for this. So you're exactly right. So because we have that in-app editor, and I'm not able to show you guys today, but we have this review. So if I sent it for review, what it would do is exactly what you're talking about. And it would give your reviewers the ability to edit the document in a real-time collaboration type scenario where they can make comments and they can make changes throughout the document. And then me as the owner or the author, I can actually come in and either accept or reject those changes. Now, sometimes what I've seen in the past with this type of functionality is that you're able to upload that document and move it forward in the process. But because we're using the in-app editor, the system actually can tell that you haven't accepted all the changes. So it says, hey, and it gives you a red wink. Please accept all changes or reject them before sending it for approval, because we want to make sure those clean documents get through to the final stage of approval.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and edit this document for a minute. And let's step back one to the properties. So in this area, whenever you start a new document, this is exactly what you'll see. You'll see the ability to give it a title. We see which type it's based off of. We can add these tags if we wanted to at this point. As I add the tag, you might notice that some of these groups down at the bottom, they're going to minimize. So this is a great way to ensure who you want to be on this document as reviewers or approvers, or even other approvers, which that would be that basic role that we were talking about earlier, are ensured that they're part of this. Change control. This also can be based off of a template. So if you had additional content that your change controls needed to contain, we've seen customers put in tables, put in checkboxes, and different information in here to make sure that why are they changing it? What do you need from it, rather than just a basic header? So we have a lot of information that you can determine to put in here. And then lastly is that content. And the other power of having it in an app editor is that it saves the changes all along the way. So if for some reason I navigate away or I close this window, I can see it's already been saved and I don't need to worry that all of my changes were lost.
Which is fascinating because now, I mean, it's so great to have, I'm glad you pointed that out because it's what we expect now, but there are some softwares that still don't have that. And I'm always like, oh, I have to save it. I can't believe I have to save it. So it's really nice when
exactly.
it should be the case.
It makes it easier for our doc admins and for our quality folk because they don't have to worry about, well, I know that you didn't save it, but I don't know what you were going to put in there, right?
Right.
And it also makes adding information in here just as easy. So if I scroll down, I actually have a pretty nice table in here that what you're seeing is this is kind of the definition and planning for this phase. We outline what our deliverable is, the link within the system, who's the responsible. So if I wanted to link something in here, all you have to do, type in the @ symbol, type in the first 3 letters, and it will pull up a library of everything in the system. And that way you can easily just link it right there. And during that review phase, your end users can do the same. So you can make sure that you have the right controls in place that if they know what needs to happen, they can suggest that and get that put in there. There's also comments that you can add as well.
Okay, question. I love the comments part. And now I'm going to have 2 questions. Hopefully I remember the second one. The first one is, I'm going to cross my fingers. It's my new little trick. Okay. The first one is, I love this phase 1 table you have, and it makes me think of like inputs and outputs for design control, of course, and the ability to link. So does it link the version at that time? Like once this is approved, it linked that test report at Rev A, even though test report might evolve later?
Great question. So if you notice under here, under product requirements, so if
Yeah.
I do the @ symbol, it's a dynamic link. It will be the newest link.
Okay.
If I wanted to link just that version, you can actually come up here and take the address bar, copy that in, and you can absolutely put in the same amount of title, and you can add a link right here. So we allow links to not only things like that, but
that's
yep.
cool.
So we've seen customers also use this if they have a pretty mature SharePoint. That's a great way to link it in, so that they can actually have access. Great ways to do it.
And then the comments, do those stay with the close? How does that work? Do they stay with the document, or they're only there until it's approved?
They are the links themselves. They are there for every version of it.
No, I meant the comments. Sorry, I jumped to my other.
The comments. Yeah. Perfect. No, the comments only stay there until it's approved, and then we obviously don't want to be showing auditors all the different comments we make, so we make sure they are removed from the system.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of saw a bunch of heart attacks happening in our quality group. No, I'm just kidding. I wanted to make sure. Yeah, I know that's one that they always want to know, right?
Yep, absolutely, because that's the worst. You send a document through and you have all the comments from everything for all time, but no, it does not stay.
Cool.
And then, so that's a bit of the portion, the more deeper dive into the documents themselves. I've already saved. You can see it keeps saving for me. And as I make those saves, it will export. So this is one of the other big questions we'll get often is you can export a copy right now. It's in draft. It will say draft across it. Now, once this is approved, you can either export uncontrolled or controlled copy. All of these different copies would be PDFs.
Okay.
That's generally a big question we get.
Yeah, right.
And I don't see any other questions in the chat. So from here, let's see. I think, unless you have any other questions, I can hand it back to Nick, or I can move on to training.
Well, one question I have is for just understanding for the different stages of implementing. Sometimes when we want to do a quick, it usually means a limited functionality. So how does Qualio do that? Are your customers limited if they want to do a quick?
So our onboarding phase. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Nick, if you'd like. Okay. Is
we need a
between
hand
30
in here.
30 and 45 days. But our implementation team is pretty amazing. Our onboarding team, what they do is they'll actually work with, of course, our customers, grab all of those different documents that they want, and they will put them into, they do that heavy lift for them over that period of time. And then, of course, the customer will approve and determine if it's good, and if it's not, then they'll go back and they'll adjust as they need. So they do that lift for them.
And then if they don't have documents, if they're, lots of times we have a CTO come to us, they have a device they want to get in people, and they need that triggers them, their desire to start their quality management system. So I imagine that it's kind of similar for you guys. You get this group of people that don't have anything but they're ready to roll. What do you guys do for that?
Sarah, I can take
Go
that
ahead.
one.
Please do.
Yeah. And it really depends on the client. Sometimes we work with wonderful people such as Canon Quality Group to help them bring in the documentation, or to use Canon Quality Group's documentation for them to enable them to hit the ground running. We do offer our own. We do also have an offering for templates as well. So it really just depends on the situation and what's going to work best for them as far as if it's a partner or our own templates. And
then still, either way, it's about 30 to 45 days to get them from zero to running. That's great.
Yeah, and in those scenarios, I mean, oftentimes it can be even faster, right? Because we're putting in everything, where sometimes we work with existing companies. They have to maybe modify some of their existing documents to meet the new process they're gonna have to go through, and that can be obviously a lot of time that they spend on that, which again, it's another great opportunity for us to partner with people such as yourselves that understand the technology and can help our clients with that. So it is less time if it is just putting in templates that
Mm-hmm.
from that
Sure.
we're just kind of like copying and pasting, and versus like if we're having to configure existing templates to put in the system.
Nice. Do you, one more question. Sorry, I'm just
No, you're fine.
dropping my gems. No, I'm kidding. Do you find, how is it to migrate from another system?
And so I guess you want to talk
Do you
through
want me to
this,
take that one?
Sarah?
I mean,
Yeah.
sure,
Sure.
it kind of like, it
Absolutely.
depends first too, right?
Right. So generally, whether it's a different system, homegrown, or another QMS or SharePoint, all our team needs is access to whatever type of document it is that's coming to us. And from there, they can actually convert it into Qualio. And I think it's important to also note, just backtrack just a little bit. Sometimes when companies say templates, they mean just here's the document type and that's all it is. With Qualio, it's not just the template type or the document type, it's also the content within. So for those really small start or those beginning phases, we can handle it that way. But migration, same thing. We just take that and then we do that creation into our system.
Okay, we have a thank you, and we have a question from the audience around if you could speak a little bit about how software validation for Qualio is handled, both the initial and then the ongoing updates. You guys can talk how you handle it.
Absolutely. Nick, do you want me to talk to that one or do you want that one?
I will let you handle that one, Sarah. Thank you.
Winner,
Perfect.
winner.
I get it. Yay. I actually was really impressed joining Qualio with how the validation was done because having been in this arena, that's one of the biggest pain points that I've seen for our customers. Because we're that GAMP5 product, what happens is we have our validation team. They will actually take it right through the tests. You will be able to see the videos. They build out the documentation. You can accept our validation, and then you would put it into your own instance of Qualio because generally speaking, your auditors want to see that as well. But it's all right there, and you're given access to all of it.
And alternatively, we can provide their own scripts, correct, Sarah? If they do want to go that extra step.
Yeah. Right.
Absolutely. Thank
for
you for
people
mentioning
who really enjoy doing it.
Right.
And then
exactly.
It's a lot of fun. We all know.
It's a good time. And then for the updates, how does that work? I'm imagining there's certain ones that don't affect the validation. And is it different? Is every person's validation or every company's validation going to be different? So it has to be evaluated, or is there a base?
There's a base because we are multi-tenant. So that OQPQ is generally taken care of, or IQ, I should say. But I love this question because that's one of the big ones, right? How do we know when you've had any updates to the system? This little cog up here, you can see I have a green dot. And I can see my product changes right here. So here's all my different release notes. You get notified whenever we make big changes by email and by notification in the actual app. If you see down here in the bottom right-hand corner, that's your ways that you can contact support, report a defect if you find one, find out additional information if you need. And that would be talking to a person. You also have a help menu up here. So there's lots of ways you can get help, but this product changes. One of the great things about it, you can see what was changed, what the validation was changed. You can export the changes, and this will just continue to go through. So you'll see it all the time.
And is there pre-warning? Sorry if I missed that.
Yes, 30 days ahead of time. Unless it's a defect, like you'll see there's a bug fix right here. They'll fix outstanding bugs immediately to make sure that that's pushed through, especially if there's nothing that there was no impact for the validation. But any major changes, 30 days ahead of time, you'll be notified.
And just to go back to Christian's question around the software only device, what are the current integrations? I know a lot of the times, the hardest part right now, it used to be the sales team. Now the hardest part is the software team, making sure that they can live where they want to live with the quality management system. So what are you finding for your day?
Yeah, as you're speaking, I thought I would just click there. So this actually will show what we have already. As far as what integrations we have and what we are working towards. So anything in green we actually have anything in yellow. We are working towards. Compliance wire tends to be a pretty big one right now, so I know that one's. I want to say that's going to be completed by Q1. But then if there's one that you are using all the time, you need different integration, you can put it right through here, and it will be put into our backlog and evaluated, and they will reach out to you to see what you're using it, how you're using it, and go from there.
And another one we're just actively working on is NetSuite too.
Mm-hmm. Good call out.
To circle back to the priorities of the group for the eQMS solution, one was regulatory submissions, and then the other was single source of truth. I'd like to kind of talk about those a little bit separately. One, let's go with regulatory submissions first. How does Qualio, the quality of Qualio, enable the regulatory submissions?
And are you meaning regulatory? This one would need a little bit of clarification because I'll see it two ways. They're meaning for like the regulations that we're following, or regulatory, actual regulatory for like a product.
Yes, I believe it's the, well, I know what the question is. I believe most people are answering in this case would be for their submissions to the regulating bodies.
So it depends, right? And I think I might be going down a path that maybe it just depends on what. Anyway, so as you look at that, your library of documents would be where you would house that. So if we're looking at a DHF, or if you were looking at a 510K, and my tags aren't showing up right now, but you can actually use those tags to denote that as well. One of the other ways that we have seen our customers use it is kind of that same document with the design plan. You can actually have that as like almost like a table of contents, so you know which documents are in that DHF or 510K, so you know which ones to download, so you can go submit it. We're not a submission tool, and that's why I was a little bit hesitant, because sometimes that will be confusing.
That clarity is good, because sometimes people they need to know where that ends too.
Right.
So
where's the button to push submit?
So you guys, but the Qualio does have, you can compile it and then export it to upload. Okay.
Correct. And that's what some of these tags are, like our ISO 9001, our Kessel Smart Pump. So you're able to tag it so you know which documents to download. You can use a document with the links in, so you know exactly which order that they go in, and things like that.
Nice. And then for one system for a single source of truth, what have you found it helps when people can shut down? So people can close down systems in that way, right? You got all these, I can imagine how a COO comes and like, just let me get down to one software or 3 softwares instead of 20. What have you found Qualio helps reduce most commonly right now when people have numerous systems they're running?
Right. Great question. Generally speaking, when they have all of these different systems, it's the linking of the systems. It's very disjointed. It's even if you're housing it in like a Google Doc or a Microsoft Word, you're having to link to the document, but it's not an interactive link. There's no way to do that efficiently. And then how do you do the change around that? Who changed it? When did they change it? You're not having to use an Excel spreadsheet to check off your training, right? So the single source of truth means when, in our case, how we help with that is when you open up this document, for instance, you know that there's not another copy out there. When this one's effective, you can't have a secondary one that's effective. You can't have multiple drafts of this same document. And the system handles that life cycle of the document for you. So you're not worried that, oh, well, I was using the risk management plan, but I was using the wrong version or the wrong one. So it helps to know that you're using the right documents for the training. You're using and linking the right documents to your design development plan. You're using the right document to verify your different audits that you have going through, or your observations. It helps ensure that you are indeed on the right document for the right purpose.
And I imagine it really takes away that user error that a lot of times ends up in an Excel spreadsheet, right? Where somebody's bringing stuff together. We think we're looking at a single source of truth. We know we're not, but now we can all really be looking
I think
at the one.
In addition to being a source of truth and preventing by keeping it in Qualio, it prevents a lot of things that might happen through user error or just leakage. I think by starting Qualio, let's say after your paper system, it also prevents you from having to use tools that maybe you would have kind of bought ad hoc. So for example, we have training in Qualio. It's not an LMS by any means, but it has 20% of the features. It gives you 80% of the benefit. And so oftentimes we'll see clients that would have maybe bought an LMS had they not bought Qualio, maybe never like decide that they can actually just do it in Qualio, some of that stuff. So I think it's more not what do they get removed, but like what are they in the long run, what are we helping them prevent from having to buy in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
I see your point. Yeah, that's a good point, right? It's not just these other places where you're playing. It's where you're not going to need to anymore because you have it in here.
Right. I believe we have 15 minutes left for Q&A, and I think there's a couple more slides. Am I correct, Nick, that you need to go through?
No, there is just I think we did the final poll question and then we just have the last slide. So I think right now is the perfect time to just kind of maybe pause and see if anyone's got any more questions or maybe wants to see anything specific.
Perfect. Just want to make sure I gave you the right amount of time left.
Yeah, great.
Thank you, Sarah.
If anybody has any more questions, drop them in. We'll give it a minute or two before we flip back to the final slides and give you any final information. I got my questions. I've been trying to pepper them in, but I should leave a little pause so others can ask.
While we're waiting for a question to come in, there's one that over the years of doing this that I always dreaded, and at Qualio I don't. Which is how do we handle end user training? So we use the approach of train the trainer, which is the approach of most QMSs out there. But the other thing that I think we stand apart from is our ability to not only just our help menu, because it is very thorough, but also there's webinars that you can attend, just like this one. And you can watch all of the previous webinars. So there's a lot of different tools that are at your disposal that we're not nickeling and diming our customers to get to. So that's a pretty big win. And because it is so user friendly, it really is easy just to pick up and start using on day one once you allow those other users within the system.
That's key. And I know that's becoming more and more a challenge for people. So no, I don't have a question. I got that one. Does it extend into, I know we have events for complaints. Does the sales team interact well? Have you found that it's easy for them to interact? I'm assuming yes, but to enter events, can they start with the content? Because lots of times they're there with the user.
Right. So they can. It is definitely one of those things that, and it depends on how your events, you determine to build out your events as well, right? So in this version of the system, these are the events that we have here. One of the things, because of the way our templates are laid out, is it makes it really easy for those who have rights. Let's be very clear about that, because that can be a little bit nerve-wracking, to come in, look at the different organizational settings, go into the quality events, and either edit that event, and you can come in here and edit the event pretty easily. So the content, you don't have to worry about, well, this label doesn't match what we do. You can come and change it as long as you have the rights to do so. You can edit the content. And so anything from that point forward, or anything that's in draft, if you want it to affect the things in draft, you can do that because of the way that we're template based.
Okay. And I believe that was a major driver for our integration with Salesforce, was just getting more, we have a lot of clients that live in Salesforce too. And so driving adoption that way. Same thing with NetSuite. So we do have adoption with them in our system, but kind of going back to that second slide, is we know how important it is now to be integrated with all the different tools a company's using, which is what we're building towards, which goes back to our design controls philosophy and building it in a way that really accelerates the product development cycle. So, we built the integration with Jira because we know, like you said before, that the engineers are the new salespeople, and that's where they live. And so we want to make it seamless
Right.
for that information to get into the quality management system. So that's our, like I said, it's a big strategy of ours, is to be where the people are, which sounds like a campaign slogan or something. But that's 100% it.
Nice. It looks like we are done. We'll go back to the final slides.
And I think yes, thank you.
Yeah, and I'm going to do thank you. I'm going to open the chat up to everybody and drop these in there so you have access to them. Just a couple of one's a gift. It's a white paper on risk analysis. You guys are welcome to find on our website, or you can go right here. And then the other one is a program that we have, which is compliance essentials for startups. That sometimes it's a good place to start. It took me years to be willing to do it because I think every company is unique and different. But this is for somebody who's at a very early stage, kind of an easy way to start. You can check that out there. Unless you have questions, we can give everyone 9 minutes back of their day. It was great doing this with you, Nicole and Sarah. I appreciate you letting me interrupt you and try and give these individuals a sense of how they could better use an eQMS like yours.
Yeah, absolutely. Nicole, thank you for having us. Sarah, thanks so much for conducting the demo. And if anyone wants to see a demo of Qualio that's like super tailored to you guys, obviously if you come to our site, we're happy to do that anytime.